Hebben we ook een symposium georganiseerd over urban intimacy. And I change now to English because all our guests are not speaking Dutch. Not all of them, some are. But then they can understand me. So today I have the honor to present you artists who work all over the world and are busy with intervening in cities, trying to make public space again, make public space understandable again, and also build up what I call urban intimacy, what I will explain in some minutes. I just, before I do this, when I try to explain my introduction and lecture, I will introduce our guests and also the program for this evening. So, first of all, I want to thank Sanja, Tom, who is the technician who keeps everything together here, and Musa also for the setting this up, and also for the invitation, Sanja, to build this. Sanja is the curator. Sanja Tomek is the curator of ONBOARDS Biennale, and she asked me to discuss and try to understand in a way what they are doing and what a mission could be also of such a biennial, and especially of art in the city, public art in the city in general. And this was my response on it. So I thought about, I was inspired by the artists you will see. Meanwhile, I will introduce them now. We have this evening at 8:30, speaking from Cairo, Bahia Shihab, and she played a very important role as an artist in the Arab Spring, and she makes for me very poetic work, which is at the same time also politically inspired. Then after my lecture and this of Bahia, we have a music performance of Anna Gozina, Cornelia Zambilla, and Yannick Heren. The performance is called Rainscape. After that, we go back from live to the internet to look at the lecture of Sarah Van Hey. Sarah Van Hey is a Belgian artist based in Brussels, and I will say already a little bit about my lecture, about the work of Sarah. And then at the end we have again a live lecture of Santiago Serugeda, who is sitting there, who is, let's say, the leader of Recetas Urbanas in Spain, Sevilla, who makes works in public space, but he will explain this, of course, himself much better than I will do. But maybe for this, let's say, this selection of artists, I want to say one thing, what I see in general, what they share in a way, and that is in a way that they try to communicate with people in another way than a classic artist does in a museum. That's certainly one thing. Some of them are very much activist, politically inspired. They try to find a connection with public space, with people in the city, their concerns. But they do it also, in my eyes, in a very, what I call a very poetic way, in that sense that they are not just activists who are fighting for something or protesting on something. They also come, in my eyes, always with a kind of positive proposal. They make something, they construct something in the city, and that's for me quite a difference. I come later to that, than what just an activist does, or when he protests, etc. Here you see also a kind of a constructive way of protesting in cities, or trying to find other ways to communicate with people in the city. People like, for example, in the work of Sarah Van Hey, people who we most of the time don't hear the voices of, who have their own history, of hidden histories we don't know yet, and she tries to give people also a chance in her work, but also she will explain this much better than me, to give them a voice. Right? So it is for me it's a very constructive way of trying to change things in public space, in cities in general. And that's what I call urban intimacy. After the lectures, there will be a brief part with a discussion with the four lecturers. I will moderate this, and there is also the possibility, if you're still here, it's 10:30 when we have a good timing to have questions if you want. Okay, I start now with my lecture, which is, has the title Urban Intimacy. It's a title, it's not, I didn't find it out. It's a title of urban sociologist Alan Bloom, who tries to explain this urban intimacy. And I use this, exactly came up to use this at the moment when this happened all over the world, the pandemic. And I started to think about what all the measures did with our society and our social relationships at this moment. And this is exactly for me a very important point. What happened was that a typical kind of social relationship was forbidden, was even criminalized. To say it a little bit blunt, in fact, with COVID and with the measures, we could only have still two kind of relationships. One was professional, mostly digital, meetings, so professional talks, and the other one was only with intimate people, people family, close friends, who with which you could share the bubble. Yeah? So we could only have two different kind of social relationships: professional ones and those very intimate ones with people we are already familiar with, we know already. And what my point was is there is losing something, as a kind of social relationship was missing or even forbidden in between. And this is exactly, I think, the relationship we have here now. We are sitting here with people you don't know, but you are listening to me, so you share something. But you don't need to know the other one. So you have a kind of a relationship. You share something, so you have something in common. But at the same time, you have not, or you don't need to have an intimate relationship with each other. So this is exactly this kind of relationship in between, what I call, or Alan Bloom calls, urban intimacy. Yeah? And so it's not a real intimate relationship, but it's also not a professional relationship. It is also not autonomous. It is something in between. Yeah? And exactly this relationship in between was criminalized, was forbidden for more than a year until now. To have, for example, an intimate relationship with strangers, or to sit in a bar together with people you maybe don't know. And this was exactly what was forbidden. So this is what I call with Alan Bloom a typical relationship of urban intimacy. I try to explain what it is about. So it's not anonymous, but it's also not intimate. It's something in between. It can become intimate, but maybe also not. Right? You sit here maybe with people at the table or people at other tables you never want to know. Right? You can think, oh no, I think completely different than this guy or this woman, but you share this space together. So there is a kind of intimacy, but it is not quite intimacy, and it's also not totally anonymous. And this is exactly this relationship in between what is called urban intimacy. So it's something also between strangers and close friends. It is something between new people you never seen and the unfamiliar, you're not familiar with. It is something between a public space but also a safe space. It's something in between. It's not a safe space. You cannot do here everything what you want. You cannot put out your clothes here. It's not a safe space. But you also cannot say even what you want. Maybe public opinions. But it is also a public space. So at the other side, you can, in fact, say what you want because it's a public space. So it's also there something in between in the space. And the last thing is also, it is something between affects, emotion, interest. Maybe you're interested what I'm saying or not. Maybe you're interested in the performance which come later on or not. And rationality. Rational, trying to understand what this is. And this is exactly what this kind of very strange gray zone between anonymity at one side and intimate is. And this is what is called urban intimacy. And the point what I try to make this evening is that the artists who I invited to come give a lecture are exactly busy with that, trying to perform in a way or to organize in the city this atmosphere of urban intimacy. And I try to explain why this is important and also how it is important, for example, for public art, but also is very important for politics. This urban intimacy. First of all, what is interesting? I think what always is happening in this space between is that you always can be confronted with people you don't know. But I see it also a little bit like a city trip. Like a city trip, when you have a city trip, you're always curious about what is around the corner. You want to walk through the city and see what is happening there, what is happening there. It's a feminist political scientist, what was her name? Iris Young, who mentioned this. This is typical urban erotics. She said an erotic gaze is that you are made very curious for something, you are interested in something. It's nothing to do with sex for her, it's really you are interested in something or something new, so you are open for it. You're open for the new, you're curious, and you're looking for the unexpected. So in that sense also, a kind of erotic gaze is the completely opposite of a xenophobic gaze, when you don't want to be confronted with a stranger, when you are afraid of the stranger, or you want to avoid the stranger. So, and this is a very important, a city is always, public space is always loaded by this erotic gaze. That you are curious, you made curious what could happen in the city, because in the city, and especially in public spaces, there can happen always something you don't know. It can always surprise you. And this is a typical attitude also that artists organize in public space. They make you curious with their artworks in the public space. When you see something strange, what is made there, you're made curious. What is this about? What is the meaning of it? And so they in effect, artists stimulate this kind of erotic gaze, to be curious, to be open in general. And this is this is one thing, of course, you can make in a city or in public space. This is typical, again, for public space, to make curious. But that what people often have when they are in public space and seen by others is when they look at an artwork, etc., they don't show their emotions. Because they know everybody's looking at me in the public space. So in the public space, you need something to build trust, a trust relationship in which you can show, for example, your interest, but also your enthusiasm for space. And that's what I call the semi-public space. And semi-public spaces, again, were the spaces which were forbidden with COVID-19. For example, I show here the picture of Monet, the Muntschouwburg. It's the opera in Brussels, which was also, of course, with COVID-19 closed. It's not a public space. You need to buy a ticket, for example, to go in. And there are some procedures to get in. You need to follow some rituals. But it is open. Most of the people can come in. It's the same counts for the museum, even this setting. This is, in fact, not a public space in that sense, because this is a private bar. So it is between private and public where we're sitting here. You're in open space, but it's at the same time a private space. So this is also a typical setting of what is a semi-public space. So a semi-public space is between open and closed. There is always a kind of symbolic border to come in here. You need to buy a beer, for example, to sit here. Otherwise, you may be kicked out. So there is a kind of border. Or you need to behave also in a certain way. You need to sit, you need to be quiet when you're listening to me. So there are you need to follow some rules. So it's open, you can come in, but there are some rules, and so in the sense it's also closed. So this is again in between. It's between the private and the public, I said already, and it is between safe and unsafe. You feel comfortable probably to sit here, to have a nice drink, but at the same time everything can happen. So you don't feel as safe as at home in an intimate space. Again, so the semi-public space is something in between. And what makes this place intimate and also semi-public is exactly the physical nearness. So it's not digital nearness. That's for me a very important point. What we missed with digital communication the last year was exactly the physical nearness of bodies together who share affects, who share emotions, who share interest, for example, who share to listen, to be quiet all together. It is sharing of something with bodies in the same space. And this is very important to understand culture, but also it's very important to communicate in education, for example. Is this body, this relationship of bodies, because it builds trust. And we all know this. We all know this also from business. People who do a business, they know that sometimes they need to have meetings, physical meetings, not only digital, not only by phone. You need to talk, for example, with a customer or a politician for an assignment live. Because it is very important, the visceral, to be in contact with each other. It's very important to build trust relationships. But it's also very important to understand an artwork. You need to see an artwork live in a context to understand or try to understand an artwork. It's the physical nearness of an artwork which gives you a context of it, and you can see also when you see a physical artwork, you immediately see also, this is related to a kind of tradition. You don't see this tradition. There are not the facts you see. For example, the art historical canon. You don't see this. You have no knowledge of it. But it is in the expression of the work itself when you are physically related to that or confronted with that. And that's my central point. A semi-public space is also very important to construct politics. I didn't show for nothing here the Monet, the opera in Brussels, because at the opera in Brussels started in 1813 after the opera La Mouette de Portici, de Stomme van Portici voor de Nederlandstaligen onder ons, started the Belgian Revolution. So people came out of the opera and they started the Belgian Revolution. And this is a very important. So they don't go immediately in public space to protest. No, they were before in a semi-public space to find trust with each other. They constructed trust with each other. They tested even in a very strange, implicit way, their emotions with each other, their enthusiasm also for the revolution, etc. And then they went out. So and this is very important. So again, the semi-public space is a space where you can find trust with others, where you are with strangers again, but you can find a kind of common sense and also common interest and a common thing to go for in the process. And this is exactly what semi-public spaces are constructing. Already for me the last slide. I know I jump also to the artist of today. So my point is that the artists in public space try in fact construct such a semi-public space in public space by making their work, by using the strategy of what I call urban intimacy. They try to relate to people physically in public space, try to make a kind of convenient situation in which they try to share things with each other. And this is very important. You need this trust relationship before you start to act, before you, for example, start to protest, but also before you dare to share your interest in an art piece or your enthusiasm for it. So you need first to have this trust. And in my eyes, the artists you will hear today, they do this. It's a typical strategy of them to build first this trust relation, to construct such a semi-public space, in public space, to make the work. So it's a kind of activism which is less political but more poetic. They make something in the city which tries to again provoke the erotic gaze, try to make people curious. Look at me, look what I'm doing here, or just by showing something, and so that people come around. For me, a beautiful example, this is Gündüz. It's a Turkish choreographer. It's a picture of 2013 at Taksim Square in Istanbul, and Gündüz is standing here. It's just after the riots in Gezi Park, and he's standing there just alone, standing still, looking at the picture of Atatürk at Taksim Square, the cultural. This is a cultural building, which is a cultural center, which is demolished now, but they constructed a new one there. But what is interesting is this is his protest. He was protesting about what was happening at that moment in Turkey. But he was very clever because he was standing alone, so the police could not say, you collect with other people, so you are protesting, it's forbidden. So they didn't know what to do. So they didn't also, people who walked around first, they didn't know, is this person a crazy guy? He's just standing there already for hours. He intended, by the way, to stand there for a month, just standing there. He has no slogans with him, no political slogans. He's just standing there. So they could not interpret it. Is he an activist? Is he protesting? What is he doing? Or is he an artist doing a performance? So he was something in between. It's a very ambiguous strategy. And only at the third, I think after 10 hours, the police came, intervened, because people were collecting around him. And then it was a collective action. It was defined as collective. And then they could arrest him. But before, they didn't know what to do. And this is a typical, for me, this is a typical artistic strategy. It's not a classical political activist strategy. It is what an artist can do. And it is by organizing kind of politics of ambiguity. And this ambiguity literally is he an artist? Is he a crazy guy? Or is he a protester? Is he a political activist? And he let us in between. He didn't say also a word. When people ask him something, etc., he said a word. He said nothing. Only afterwards, he was interviewed by the BBC, etc. He explained why he was against the regime, etc. But also, he said, I want to have the alternative open. I have no solution, but I'm against. but I let it open what can be a solution for the problems we have in our country. So he stayed also quite ambitious about that. He was not left-wing, he was not right-wing. He refused to make a decision in that. He was quite left-wing afterwards, but anyway, that was his position. And this is, I think, a very important strategy, I think, which those artists do. And I think what they bring in their work and in the public space is what they show is what I call the power of vulnerability. It's really it's why I use this picture there. It's a typical protest in the United States in the 70s against the Vietnam War, and a lot of you know this. This one puts a flower in the barrel of a gun, of a shotgun. It's a typical. This for me a very a powerful act because it shows vulnerability. It shows literally this body is standing there in front of a gun, and it shows really that you are transcendent, that you are very to say it in Dutch, that you are kwetsbaar, that je geraakt kan worden. You can be touched. And I think this is a very important strategy, even a political strategy. Artists use. They put their own bodies in front of guns, but also in front of public space. They put their own bodies in the struggle. And a body is something what is transcendency, or what is transcendent. That means that it's very vulnerable. And so this is something else. Then, for example, what is often used by protests, this is freedom of speech. I can say what I want. I can use my opinion. And which is also often used by artists. Freedom. As artists, I have total freedom. This is kind. No, what they say is they do something else. They say we share something. We share our bodies. We share our vulnerability. And this is a very important thing to build up trust relationships. So no, that was my point I wanted to make. I now want to present our first speaker. She speaks from Cairo, so we will see her on Zoom and here on the screen. It's Bahia Shihab. She will, of course, talk a lot about her own work, and she will do this better than me. But I learned Bahia Shihab to know 2 years ago, and she was for me a very inspiring artist who played a very important role in the Arab Spring. And she plays enormously with the poetics of language and science in public spaces, and she constructs there also, in my eyes, an intimate space. So I give now the floor. I hope technically, I'm a little bit nervous about this. It will work. I will give the floor to her. Yeah.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Okay. I will make the screen bigger, and then. Okay. Yeah, I have to unmute.
Perfect. Okay, I will start by sharing my screen. Yeah. Okay, so thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to join you tonight, wherever you are. My question was, where is the public? And if you remember these iconic images from Tahrir Square, they captured the imagination of the world. And as a scholar and a historian at the time, I was looking at these images and thinking that there's no way I can be part of this. It was really overwhelming. And eventually, I joined the revolution as a street artist. And for a whole year, I had been working silently and quietly without anybody's knowledge. Actually, I came out in a TED talk, and this is how everybody around me knew that I'm a street artist. How did I get to that point? I always had a problem with the white cube. I felt that it's a very alienating space for me as an artist. I cannot really, I do not feel like I can connect with a lot of people, and I never realized that the street could be a platform for me to connect until the revolution. So I will take you 10 years back in 2000, or 11 years back in 2011, when I was invited to participate in an exhibition on 100 years of Islamic art in Europe. And the curator said, you can do whatever you want. So obviously this was a white cube at the Haus der Kunst. And I said, if there's one thing as a human being I want to say now, I want to say no. So I started looking for 1,000 different no's on everything produced under Arab or Islamic patronage. And I collected those in a book, and each letter I traced the patron, the date, and the material where this no was drawn. And then I installed the installation in September of 2010 at the Haus der Kunst. And, you know, it's, for me, this was a statement of rejection, and it was a political statement of rejecting everything. So saying no to everything 1,000 times, because in Arabic, when you want to confirm the no, you say no, and 1,000 times no. So the revolution started in January of that year, and for 9 months I was simply documenting, and eventually this happened where I saw this video of bodies being piled like garbage on the street, and I felt like these 1,000 no's have a use now, they are useful. The first no I sprayed was no to military rule, and I took these historic no's and I started adding messages to them. So no to military rule, no to violence, no to killing. And each one of these no's, they started coming one after the other. They were a reaction to what I was witnessing in terms of injustice and brutality on the streets of Cairo. No to burning books, no to stripping the people. So these no's kept coming, and I started spraying them over and over again on different walls and on different barrier walls and different streets in Cairo. But then during the revolution, we came to a point where I kept on saying no, but I needed to say other things. And there were the elections, and the election conclusion was between the old regime and the Muslim Brotherhood, and we suddenly felt like we lost the revolution. So I wanted to remind the people of why we went down to the streets. So I sprayed this campaign. Many others I sprayed for 2.5 years. I was constantly spraying on the streets of Cairo, but this specifically because it has to do with the audience. And I'll come back to my question, where is the public? As a woman, I used stencils because they were faster and they were safer for me to spray on the street. I was so envious of the other male street artists who had like months. They would sit on the street with, you know, tens of other friends and men and passers-by on the street, and they would paint these huge, beautiful murals during the revolution. And as a woman, I didn't have access to that, but I had access to stencils, and I made sure in TED Talk and in different TED blogs that I would document this process so that it's not lost. So in this campaign, it was a reminder of what we did. And it reads, some people have lost their eyes so that you can see. Some people have been stripped naked so that you can live decently. Some people have been imprisoned so that you can live free. Some people have had their head put to the ground so that you can raise your head up high. And some people have died so that you can live. So these served as reminders. And one indicator on the street is the faster they spray, the stronger the message. The faster they erase, the stronger the message. So this wall was erased a few days later, but someone took photos and it really went viral. Without any intervention from my part. I was still anonymous at that time. So I did not come forward, say, hey, this is my work. I was just happy that the message was traveling because it was relevant at the time. And a lot of people identified with it. So it went viral online, even though it was erased on the street. But then a new life form was given to this artwork because it was featured on the cover of on the third page of a major newspaper that was running at the time. And to me, the message has surpassed the medium. So it's not just a graffiti on the street addressed to people walking on the street, but it went online and then it went back to mainstream media with no budget, no investment, except a stencil and a spray can. And to me, that was a success for the revolution. But then 2013 came, a new regime took over, and this is what the streets of Cairo look like right now. All of my work has been erased. All of the work of the revolution of artists was erased. So I felt like Cairo was no longer my city and we had no voice. A political graffiti is 4 years in prison. So I decided to go elsewhere. And I said, if Cairo is not my city, then the whole world will be my city. And I took the opportunity of being invited to Freiburg to exhibit in Germany again. And I thought, so now what are the new no's? If the first no's were objecting to the police brutality and the brutality I was seeing on the streets of Cairo, what is a no that I want to say to the world if I'm going to the world now? So no to extremism, no to racism, no to blood, no to war, no to borders, no to discrimination, no to hatred, no to killing, no to stupidity, no to colonialism, no to violence. And those I sprayed on the streets of Freiburg for the first time. And I remember my feeling, I was so scared because every time I spray, I'm used to running. But then I met this amazing artist who gave me his wall. And he told me, there are 12 legal walls in Freiburg. You don't need to run. And I'm giving you my wall. There's no need to run now. You can just spray. And just that idea that I will not get shot or killed or raped because I'm spraying on the street was a very powerful idea that I can actually take my time to communicate and share my message. And I'm grateful to all the artists I met. Also, I sprayed the nose then in many cities. This is New Orleans in the US. This is in Turkey. This young man just found me on the street spraying and he told me, come, I have this restaurant upstairs. Come upstairs and spray. I told him, but you don't even know what I'm spraying. He said, I don't care. It looks good. Come spray it. And this kindness and hospitality that I started witnessing across different cities, across different borders, really made me feel connected to like-minded people around the world. When the revolution started in Beirut, the first thing I did is I packed my stencils and I went downtown to Beirut, and I also sprayed a set of no's to Beirut specifically for Beirut inside this structure that I showed you in downtown. But then we document the work, and that's the most important part of the process for me, because the street art is ephemeral and I really want the message to travel. So documentation is key. When I was invited to London, and I was given this wall, and I asked my friends, what do you want us to spray? And they said, we want to spray no to Brexit. So I said, okay, we sprayed no to borders, no to Brexit, and then no to Boris. And this wall was literally erased the next morning because we did not have permission to translate. As long as the message was in Arabic, they did not mind. But the minute we translated the message to English, This was erased the next morning. So it's nice also to test the city's tolerance and censorship within the artwork, but that really didn't matter because a friend of mine was there, and it's now documented in the New Yorker. So we have again surpassed censorship. Um, but then after saying no over and over again, I decided that it's time to reflect more on these cities that I'm visiting and the messages that I want to send back home through these cities, and to process the feeling of not having access to the public, or how do I access my public with current regimes, or how do I access the messages I want to communicate. Remember, I told you about my discomfort with the white cube because it was not, we don't have enough infrastructure for the arts in the Arab world. I don't see people lining up in queues outside museums in the Arab world. So this is why I feel like the street is more of a place that communicates. And then you discover after the revolution that online is also a place that we can communicate. So it's now this play between offline and online, and how do you make your message travel across the two, and how do you make it relevant? So after spraying no in many cities around the world, I felt like I needed to process the loss of the city. And to me, that happens with poetry. When I read poetry, and the most significant poet at the time when I was processing was Mahmoud Darwish, who's a Palestinian poet of the resistance, because I think the people of Palestine have already gone through displacement, colonization, and all the feeling of dislocation that you feel when you lose your land, or you lose access to your city or your country or your identity. And so reading through his poetry, it gave me comfort. And I was invited to Vancouver, and I met Iola, and I told Iola, I have a message I want to spray, and it's a poem by Mahmoud Darwish. So Iola told me, and I told Iola, I want to spray at night so that I don't get caught. And Iola told me, no, we're going to spray in broad daylight so that we don't get caught, because we're not doing anything wrong. We're painting a poem. And again, it's that idea that the city belongs to us, and this ability to paint a message anywhere in the world just by connecting with the community of that city was very significant. So I painted the first poem at a corner, and it reads, "Stand at the corner of a dream and fight." And to me, that was significant because I felt like even if we lost our dreams, we still need to fight for them. And I felt that this was like I'm getting ready for the battle, and to continue and be more persistent in calling for change, even if I don't have access to creating that change in my city right now. We have over 60,000 political prisoners in Egypt, and for Sanaa Saif and all the women political prisoners, I went to New York, and I painted a poem about imprisoned butterflies. And while I was spraying with a group of this amazing street artists in New York, on a really beautiful spring summer day, where again I had learned that I don't need to run, that this wall was actually, we had a policeman come with white paint to clean the wall so that we can paint it. And then you look at the relationship of people with their cities and with their systems, and you start reflecting on how important is how the voices of the people of the city to be translated into the system. And this poem, I had the political prisoners in mind, especially the women political prisoners. Some of them are still in prison till today, unfortunately. In Madison, it was 0 degrees, so we painted indoors this beautiful mural, and it reads, "No to the impossible." And while we were painting on the floor, people from different backgrounds, completely different backgrounds, Native Americans, LGBT community, an ex-Marine. So we were coming together on this carpet and telling stories and connecting with with themes of what is oppression, what is democracy, while we were painting this mural. And the conversations became more important to me than the wall itself. And documenting these conversations became more important to me than the artwork itself. Yes, the artworks are interesting, they translate my view, but the people that they bring together are more important than the artwork itself. In Marrakesh, I painted "We Love Life If We Had Access to It." And again, I connected with a group of beautiful young design students in Marrakesh. And just seeing their talent and excitement about sharing this wall, some of them became friends still today. And again, I'm also always trying to explore new forms of writing Arabic, and I want to challenge the way Arabic is written and perceived. So you might not be able to directly read what I write, even as an Arab speaker, but eventually when you come to discover it, it belongs to you then. You feel a connection to the artwork because you made an effort to read the poem. And if you're from the Arab world and you read the poem, you will understand that the whole story. You'll understand that this is Darwish. These are famous poems by Darwish, and these are for the Palestinian people. And this is for our struggle as Arabs living all around the world today, as human beings living all around the world today. In Tokyo, I painted a poem with these two little girls, and I was really homesick. And I have two little daughters. And these little girls were passing by, and I told them, would you please just sit in my frame, because you're the same age as my daughters, and I want to take this photo with you. And the poem reads, on this earth there are things worth living for. It's really it's a beautiful poem, and I really think there are very human solutions in the philosophy of the East. And having these two girls who decided to graciously sit in the frame for me is the artwork. It's not really the graffiti that I painted, but rather having their smiles and their confident looks, looking back like a coming generation who has a different outlook on life maybe than us. The issue, I'm sure you've all seen these photos. We are still seeing and reading about these photos. And it pains me that even though we have all the technology to save these people who are dying every day, we still don't. And for that, I painted a poem in Kefalonia in Greece. It reads, "Those who have no land have no sea." And the poem was painted in a place where young Olympians and young Greek men and women train to swim. And they train to celebrate the beauty and accomplishment of this beautiful sport. While just behind the wall, there are people dying because they cannot swim and they don't have access to land nor sea. So to me, this comparison between the site-specific wall and what was going on behind it was also part of the message. In Lebanon, I painted "My Country is Not a Suitcase," also for the displacement and for everybody who's having to leave and flee their homes and live out of suitcases in different parts of the world. It rejects that notion, and it says that my country is not a suitcase. Again, the poem was erased quite quickly because it was sprayed next to the house of a very important politician. In Amsterdam, I wanted to end the year on a positive note. And I had this wonderful group of students, different university students from different majors, come to join me on the wall. And that night we learned how to protect the wall, because the first night it rained and half of the wall was erased. So now we worked together and we covered the wall. And the poem reads, "One day we will be who we want to be. The journey has not started. Small is the state." And if you know the poem, the whole poem reads, how wide is the revolution? How narrow is the journey? How big is the idea? How small is the state? So again, it is mentioning the revolution indirectly. And I love that wall because I had a young Syrian girl who lives in Stavanger run up to me and say, are you Arab? Is this in Arabic? And I told her, yes, it's a poem by Mahmoud Darwish. And she was so happy. And her name was Amal, which means hope in Arabic. And Amal had one comment. She said, it's nice that you are painting Arabic here in Stavanger so that you show them that we have culture. I only wish you painted a brighter color. Why did you paint it in black and white? So you never know who will come across your wall in a city. You never know how people react and feel about it, but it becomes part of their city. And in Paris was very interesting because I had so many angry French women walk up to me and say, why are you painting Arabic here? Go paint it in your own city. Every day I would have one or two angry older French women walk up to me and say, we don't like this. And it's their right, it's their city. But for every one angry woman, I would get 10 people saluting me and telling me, bon courage, we love what you're doing. Even photo shoots took place before I finished the wall. Police, I mean, there was so much life on this wall. Police, there was a police chase. I was screaming, please don't, not on my wall. The paint is wet. So it was really interesting to go about the city every day and get the reaction and feel what the people are feeling on the street. And I only painted one word. It reads, I will dream. So in Hawaii, after talking to the curators, I realized that the people in Hawaii have done an amazing act of decolonization when they revived their language. The Hawaiian language was almost extinct. And now we have young men and women who are graduating from college and who are in the workplace and who speak fluent Hawaiian. And to me, I wanted to pay tribute to that and celebrate that. So I painted My People Will Return as Air and Light and Water. And these are all poems by Mahmoud Darwish. And this was a poem that was entitled The Red Indian's Penultimate Address to the White Man. So it worked, I think, beautifully, leaving that message there, celebrating the accomplishment of the people in Hawaii. The walls, as you see, became bigger, and my envy of my fellow male street artists in Cairo has disappeared because now I'm connecting with different communities around the world who share my dreams, who share my concerns, but who are also stakeholders in my wall. These are not my walls, these are our walls. We paint them together. And I give credit to Claire, the beautiful curator of this wall, because she designed the workshops in a way where women would be able to leave their children with caregivers so that they can paint with us. And we connected with the community of the Muslim women in Lincoln, the YMCA, and the students at Lincoln University. And the reason why we chose Lincoln was because it has one of the highest for Brexit votes. And we wanted to leave a message for the community there. And you can see the diversity of the community that came to the wall. And the poem again reads, we will not repent our dreams no matter how often they break. The final wall pre-COVID that I painted was in Antwerp, which is a city very close to my heart, and I have very dear friends in it. And I worked with the curator Ruth and Famus and the team at Famus. And we decided after they sent out a questionnaire in the city, and we asked the city questions of what do they want to be painted or how they're feeling about their city. And then we decided that on this poem, all the hearts of the people are my identity, release me of my passport. And really, This was one of the most beautiful workshops I've conducted, and the community was so wonderful. Uh, um, it's just the conversations again, a Moroccan, a young girl from Syria, a young girl from Algeria, a man from Latin America, a Russian artist. We had policemen walk in for some soup. We had workers out on the street ask us what are we painting. We organized a dance that is to a song that is the poem. So they also organized photography workshops. So really just bringing the community together was so heartwarming, and it was so special. And I think this is what art is and what art should be. It should be a space for us to connect, and a space for us to dream, and a space for us to communicate. And to me, that wall did exactly that. So a lot of these walls, because some of them were illegal, some of them were erased, I had to document them. And I published this book in 2019. It's called At the Corner of a Dream. And it describes this story and this journey that I took in different cities, and this acceptance of losing the revolution, or losing the dream of a revolution, or the dream of change, and going out to the world and connecting with different communities around the world. So this was documented in this book. But then I went back to the white space, and I was invited at the Aga Khan in London to contribute with an exhibition. And I wanted to reflect on the walls that I painted, and I wanted to create what I felt on these walls to the people visiting this exhibition. So we created a 4-screen installation. So you would sit on the bench and you are completely surrounded by these 4 screens. And the first video was leaving Cairo. So you have this woman spraying stencils on the wall, and a man coming behind her and erasing the stencils. And then 4 poems came later. This one is My Country Is Not a Suitcase, that I painted in Lebanon. And you see 4 suitcases being filled with 4 different things. So books, because ideas; clothes, children clothes, because memories, and you move on with your families; spray paint in my case; and then food, because these are the things that I care about the most. And I think as people, these are things that are close to us. Like, again, it's a comment about food, about freedom of speech, about our identity, about our creativity. So each of these bags would contain ideas. And in the video, you just see a woman filling this bag up and then closing it. And the next video for the imprisoned women butterflies, I went to a museum here that had butterflies in the case that were actually decomposing. And those created the butterfly poem. And Those Who Have No Land Had No Sea, I filmed with a drone people sitting on a beach, which is very symbolic. And then the camera pans over this big pool, which I feel the Mediterranean is actually a big pool. And then you have this woman who's drowning with all of these life jackets scattered around her. So, and you can see that she's obviously in black, holding her veil. And for the final installation, I created this, We Love Life If We Had Access to It. And it depicts a wedding, but a very morbid wedding, because it starts off in this red tuk-tuk, and then they go off to this broken house, and then they're sitting in front of a butcher who's cutting meat, and then eventually they're sitting, and the backdrop is Cairo's City of the Dead. So we love life, but we don't have access to it. So again, how do you take a poem that became a wall and then turn it into a 360 degrees experience? This to me was the whole point of this exhibition. And then I was invited to really, these are the final 2 projects that I will share with you today. So this is the Light and Hope visually impaired women orchestra in Cairo. And I was invited by a group of a collective called Project Light to reflect on blindness all over the world. So I decided to feature these women because to me it was magical, the fact that they did not need a conductor. Yeah, they played together, and I remember walking into the room really having no expectations, because you know, you see these women, you think, yeah, how good can they play? And I remember the minute they had their instruments and they started playing, I had tears rolling down my eyes because I could not believe how impeccable what they were playing was. It was perfect, and they were playing really complex symphonies with no mistakes. To me, they were superheroes, and I wanted to portray them like that. So I took portraits of them and these, and I created a short video that depicts moments when they start holding and then when they finish. And they all, even though they cannot see, the minute they put their instruments down, they have these big smiles on their faces, and it's fascinating. So the video depicts that. And this was part of a global art campaign for the right of sight. Um, and it was curated by Fine Acts. And this is a traveling exhibition. So it's traveling, and I exhibited here in Cairo this year to create awareness about blindness and the right to sight. And then COVID hit, no exhibitions, no streets, no public, no wall, no traveling. How do you reach the public? How do you create works of art with no museums and no streets? And I was really very fortunate to be invited by TED to reflect on what's happening with our climate. And there's this great initiative called The Countdown, where TED is bringing global thinkers and influencers and policymakers and politicians to commit to cutting green gas emission by 50% in 2030. And this started last year. And I wanted to build a pyramid of garbage because I was thinking, what is the legacy that I live in a country that 7,000 years ago left humanity one of the most wondrous monuments till today. What do we want to leave the children who are coming 5,000 years later? I hope we don't leave them with pyramids of garbage. And really, this was not visited by any audience. This was constructed secretly in the Cairo's garbage city because it was too dangerous to reveal the place. And this was simply filmed by a drone, and the images were shared with TED, that was shared with millions of people all around the world. So it didn't matter that you did not have access to the physicality of my artwork. What mattered is the message, and that it was communicated with different peoples in different communities around the world, and that it created awareness about the future of our collective existence on this planet together. So again, where is the public? The public is everywhere. With that in mind, after 10 years of the revolution, I wanted to reflect on the revolution and reflect on the 10 years that had passed and the work that has been erased. So I published this book this year to celebrate 10 years of since the Egyptian uprising. And I think we will need many more decades to see the result of what happened 10 years ago. But I felt that a book as an archive, as an intimate story that will reach a different kind of public and that will stay as a documentation in spite of what is going on now, in the face of what is going on now, I think is the best way to reach a public. Maybe in 10, 20, 30, 40 years, when we are ready again to create change, I know that at least I have been honest and I have preserved the memory for the generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Bahia. I hope you heard something of the public. You can't see them. Okay.
I heard them.
Okay.
Thank you.
We have now a musical intermezzo, and but I hope you stay, that we can talk afterwards, and also can have questions from the public.
Sure.
So I need to do something technical again, what I'm not good at. I try. That. That's the film. So I announce them again. I'm very honored to present the performance of Anna Gozina. Okay, yeah. And you use it like that, or do you want it on?
I don't know. Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, like that?
Okay.
But can you do it on total
Okay.
screen? Okay.
Now, as you decide. It's okay.
Okay. Okay. Yeah? Is it okay for you like that?
It's
Yeah,
okay.
I just introduced you Santiago. Santiago is leading Recetas Urbanas. Recetas Urbanas is based in Seville, in Spain. And they do already now, how many years?
Me or the
10 years, the office?
No, more.
20 years. Actions in public space, make public space also, make common space also for people. One of my favorites here is
Okay. Pascal, thank you. And thank you for the people who are here, still here, the professionals. Okay. So thank you to be here and for invite me and my family is there, Alice and Adele. So, okay, many of you are artists, and that is a problem. When appear the art in my life, because yes, I started like a young person in Sevilla, trying to make a small projects, but then when you make a strange thing on the street, on the public space, all people say, he's artist. No, fuck you. So I'm not artist. I'm a simple person in Sevilla who want to produce a change, a small action in my city. Now we are more professional, but not artists. But now I will pay like artists. It's okay for me too. But for me, at the beginning, it was 24 years ago when I started studying architecture. I wanted to be military. Well, it's okay. So for me, was very strange the meaning to say, okay, if you want to change your street or to make a proposal, a project in your street, your neighborhood, your city, must be you artists or architects or politicians or a simple citizen. So I will be faster, don't worry. When I started to see that it happens in my city, but if you change the concept of the law, so one skip to put garbage and you make a playground, because the politicians say it's not possible to make playgrounds in the center in Seville because it's a very old city, it's beautiful city, it's all center, and I say, but the cars and the other furniture is new. But okay, second year, 23 years ago, making small actions, scaffoldings, to try to understand how, if you are artist and you propose to a museum, Middle Hill Museum, to make one scaffolding in a building, it's very easy. You are artist, you have your curriculum, and then they pay you to make one scaffolding. But in that moment, my daughter, it was one action to understand the law. How you have the right to move, to change a small regulation in the city. Do you know if you have right to occupy a tree is legal or illegal? I don't know if you read your laws here in Antwerpen, Flemish law. I don't know exactly. But when we started to make actions, small actions, people say, you are artist. I say, no, fuck you. I'm a simple person. Yes, you know, Adele. So it was the same. It was how to use the public spaces in a different form. Not because I decided, because people, I was listening, the people, my neighbors, my family, some friends, they say, it's possible, not artists, only simple person who wanted to change the city, occupying small empty sites to use in a different form. For Adele, you want to Diego? Which one? Voy a esperar. She said she's waiting. Adele, if you public space now. Alisa too. Oh, Adele, they pay me, you know? They are paying me, you know? It's a public space. Thank you so much. It's my daughter, because she collaborates with us all time. We are building together, and she say, I want to collaborate. And that feeling to collaborate is the way we have to involve people. And she feels, I think so. When we squat empty sites, public empty sites in Madrid, in Barcelona, and they write squatters or artists or architects. Sometimes nobody knows what's happening in the city when you are changing the rules in a public space. But my position now in that short lecture or meeting is to say not only the empty sites, not only the streets, it's a good place to make a social center, a cultural center without any regulation, without any permission from the art or from the urban planning office. So, but at the end we started to introduce ourselves that not only the street, the squares, the empty sites are public spaces, are the schools, the university, the mental healthy spaces, the hospitals. So we started 12 years ago to introducing other public spaces with art, with activists. I don't know, but we started to make, because at the end I have a title and a list to, like architects, our king, stupid king, you know, they gave us a title with a different energy to make architecture. But our feeling is it was to involve people, like a public space. At the end, the first actors in the university, for me, aren't the teachers, sorry. Aren't in art the curators, sorry. The directors are the users, the real users, the students in that case. Students who were decided to build together their own, not classrooms, their open classrooms, the place where they were living, building, sleeping, making love, without any teacher. It was in Malaga, 18 years ago. But at the same time, we worked always in two lines. Public spaces on the street, the squares, but in the other spaces, it was very easy to open empty public space, is fighting with the politician there, and at the end, isn't an art work. So at the end, we change a law. So it's in Spanish, sorry, but at the end, during 5 years fighting to use empty sites to change a law. The law permit all the people, not only the artists, to make that project, to use. Because if I am an artist, like here with the middle hand in the Conning Plain Square, I'm an artist. They pay me to be there and to make a beautiful project. One beautiful green mountain with people, and the process was amazing. But they invite me, not the people. Can the protocol to produce, to propose, to make it? That is a problem, different. So we make different scale of projects. My beer. You came for my beer. Maritzu, please. No, not my beer, no? Yes, Maritzu Plum, please. Merci beaucoup. No, in French, no. Sorry. So we have different scales of projects, small scales, illegal scales, to make a small furniture in the public space in the 4,000 of public schools where the mothers, fathers, directors, teachers, students decide to change that regulation for the public school in Spain and in France and Belgium too. And then one day you decide to broken the concrete to plant. We are professional cutting concrete in different public schools. It's a beautiful music. It's very cheap. You pay for that machine, you cut the concrete and invite the families to open the concrete, and then you plant trees. You know the south from Spain is sunny, it's hot, so we need trees. Sometimes we decide not to cut in one school. I love you. I love you in artist way, okay, you know, not personal only. So sometimes we cut ways because it's illegal that way. That I have to say, where the cars appear. It's for my mom. So it's a question to use the public space. One public space is an empty site, 3,000 square meters, public property during 35 years empty, and you have two options: to demand, to attack your government, to say you have the responsibility to make a culture use, because appear in the urban plan. You know, if you don't make it, we have the right without public money. That project we made with €0 during 4 years, fighting with the city in Seville, and then they attack us, of course. And I remember, Alice, you are here in the picture. Because when one person, a normal person, go to the city hall, the urban planning office, you think that you have to be very elegant to speak with the politician. No. You have the right to go in your own way. Not like artists. All of them are artists, or at least they are like architects, to pay a license. And we decide to go like we are. And you have the right to make as you want, to express. Many people don't know how to sign, to write. Have a right to say, I'm Manuel, and I'm here to demand you. I don't know how to read, but it's my right to demand. So that picture is amazing. Mira, mamá, aquí. Mamá. ¿Tú no habías nacido? No. See, you are inside mamá. Yes. No, it was a very amazing. That picture is talking about public space. There are politicians, technicians, mothers and father, only from one father. and trying to change how the people go there. Yeah. Allí. Coquín, petit coquín. Allí. But it's Alice who is there, or there, I don't know. She has there, you can see a black box in the hands. That black box is the total weapon. The total weapon is all the papers, all the answer to the question, for the question that technicians and politicians demand us. When we are working with people with disabilities, young people, old people, people with difference, they say, you can't involve them, you can't invite them. What's happened with you? And then we have all, it's an art project, it's a political project to involve people, and that is the first license in Spain that permit to make a public culture center involving all type of people. You know, and it's the last I want to speak about before to the questions. At the end, we are architects, Alice and me, our team. You know, all of you in your city, in your countries, when you go to a construction site, official isn't permitted, not permit the people. So it's closed. And during years, we say, that is a public space, now and during the works. No. The normal is when appear a big project, it's closed during 2 years, 3 years, and it's closed. Because they are afraid about responsibilities, damage, accidents. I know all the stupid things. But we always open for all people, all type of person. 7,000 people working with us during 20 years with different capacity and make buildings like this. Appear a joke in Europe, in Spain too, we are Europeans. It's a joke, but it's real. And at the end, our option is, okay, at the end we are architects. When we make art, like here with the middle hand, Conning Plain, we invite people to work with us. Nearly 300 people. At the end, what's happened when you invite to a construction site is public. So we are demanding the square meter per hour to involve more people. If you test, so you check thousands of construction sites in Spain, you have millions of square meter empty during years. And you say, no, it's public, open. And we are open only our specific sites with music, good food, good drinks. Is possible to drink in a workplace? Yes, because we are in professional. Law about professional is an important for us. Never we had an accident, never. In 20 years. The only 2 accidents, and Alice knows, it was, I don't know how to say exactly in English, but it was sexual accidents. Yes, sorry, 2 persons who make love and have very different things, I don't know, and when appear the control, no, it's real. It's the only accident we had, 7,000 people, and appear in Madrid, it was another in Madrid, showing person, people, at least they are with me around. Sometimes we make public spaces with squatters, sometimes in collaboration with the city, with the politicians, and sometimes they pay money. And you are in agree with them, appear fire. I don't know, at least how many projects, 3, 4 projects around us, and at the end appear fire, on fire. But the last one is Cañada Real, because Alice decided to produce intimacy, public space, architecture. For me, it's all the same. It's the one of the poorest neighborhood in Spain. It's 11 kilometers in line. That's 2 months ago in Paris. They gave us a prize about that project, like arts project, social arts or similar. And for us, when we use the art, so that is one exhibition, one exposition. Amazing. It's art. Okay, we are in art center. I don't remember in which year, but it was 17 years ago minimum. And we use an art center to produce architecture with children. So many times when we use art, it's the excuse to use art to at the end make a real project. I know that art is real too. It's real. All the projects we saw are amazing and are real. But for me, real, like architect, is when at the end you have to be in contact with lawyers, with another architects who appear day by day to check your project. You have the responsibility to build in 6 months a social and cultural center in Madrid, in a very poor neighborhood. And the contract, it was like constructor, not architect, not artist. And Alice, you always made that posters, and that invite you to go inside the workplace and appear a joke. But at the same time, we are artists too. Sometimes on Friday, on Saturday. So sometimes we are artists. It's very nice to change each day. It's like to be trisexual. It could be a good option. That is art, you know, it's art. Of course, it's beautiful, it's amazing, good lights, good picture. That must be art. But for us, at the end is only a small piece, one small piece to involve in a real project. Of course, that is real. For us, it was amazing to work with 45 women from Latin America in Madrid to build that house in art meeting. But later, we were thinking about how to use, and it was there in Cañada Real, in that strange neighborhood, where we won a competition. During 2 years, it was empty. So the city from Madrid proposed to all the architects from Spain to make a social and cultural center in Cañada. Nobody wanted to go. 1 year, empty. 2 years, empty. The third, they found, say, nobody want to make that social center. It's possible for you to make it? And we talk and say, okay, but in our conditions. And our condition was how to involve people in that type of projects, in that type of public space. Because at the end, it's the unique public space they have in Cañada Real. Official, they have some informal, illegal, amazing, small public spaces. So I finish now. When you are an architect and they propose to make a building, and then we decide not to make a building, if not to invite people from different places from the neighborhood. That is our form to invite new different collectives. We started to working with that building, you remember, from the art place. It was our first house in that special place, where the first day we were cooking the Muslim couscous, the gypsies, pork, and it was like it make the first family house in the construction sites. It's official. It's the first are totally legal. So with Alice, we make one before, but it was amazing the day that the woman from Latin America give us the building. And okay, if you decide to build there, all the women working in a very high level. Why? Because the gypsy don't permit the woman work in construction. And the Moroccans and the Muslims say the same. So it was a beautiful party where we invited the Muslim, the gypsies, 6 different public schools. Only one say it's possible for us. We were building inside public schools, one Hypatia school, working with them, 600 students from 8 to 18 years old, working together, not for the school, for the social center of the neighborhood. It was a change for the school. Some students saying, my father is in the jail, in the prison. It's a pity. So we went to the prison in Madrid, one of them, and we invite 7 parents from the kids, and they were building one. That building is from the school Hypatia. The other building, so each building was made for different collective, for the School of Design of Madrid, public. That was from the jail. And the opinions, the official construction site in Madrid was that. You are here, you are invited to be here. All the architects, lawyers who came day by day, they are saying, it's legal. You can't invite people in a public construction. I say, yes, are you sure? Are you sure? So for us, as project is at the end, you can see 1,200 people who were building with us in that social center, in a public space. From the first day to start building, the people was there. So it was amazing. And all the politicians, professional technicians, in silence. For us, it's a new way to make, like here, it was art, making different schools in Madrid, without any license, small rooms with children, using another public space indoor to prepare material for public classroom. We are using now, all we think is public space, not only the street, the square, is public building, schools, social centers, healthy center, all is public. So we want to involve more people to feel if you are a student, you have the right to change your school. If you are a patient, you have an ill mal, you can change your healthy place. If you are an artist, of course, for us is to prepare the material here for young people to build themselves in our open classroom. Here. So in the last 8 months, we built 5 different open class with more than 400 people, students from 6 to 18, without any license. Now our public school changed, and that is public spaces, not more. Please, now is this discussion about Pascal. You are the boss now, so please, come on.
Thank you, Santi. And thank you also for performing Urban Intimacy live with your daughter, Adele. It's fantastic. You demonstrate. It's, okay, I put on technical stuff. The Zoom. Can you help us, Sanya? Okay. Yes. I hope Sarah and Bahia are still there. Okay, hello.
Hola.
Stay
Coucou.
here. Hello.
I have to put out some.
I hope you could follow us, Bahia, Sarah.
Yes, yes, it was
Okay.
lovely.
Okay, fantastic. So you need to sit near. Yeah, morning. Voila. Okay. First of all, again, thank you for giving your presentations. Be here as a very, for me, at the same time, yeah, I have to say it was my collection of people I really in favor of, and I really appreciate. But I also realize that you have very heterogeneous practices, so it's very different, but in a way I think there are also a lot of connections. I prepared questions, three which are for me important still, and one is maybe for all of you boring, so maybe we can can leave this out, but I will see. But one is related to it's related to my lecture and the idea of space and being physical, the necessity of being physical in a space together. I heard definitely different opinions about that. I think Bahia had a different opinion about that in her work and in her practice than Sarah, for example, but also I think than Santi has. A second is about time, and it came up with the lecture of Sarah, who said, that was something what touched me somewhere, or what triggered me. I think she said you need to have take much time. I don't say it literally, yes, Sarah. You need to take much time, enough time to learn to know each other, but not too much time to colonize the space or something like that. It was, and for me, this is very triggering, because I know also I stressed very much to build up urban intimacy. You need physical nearness, that space that's related to space. But for you, there is also something with time, and this double thing is to me very interesting again. What is enough time and what is not? What is too much time to relate? So that's second, and then related to that is how you need space and time to build trust relations. How does it affect trust relations when you only, for example, work digital? So that are my three questions. The last question, I just mentioned them all, and then you can pick up and you can jump in where you want. And that all the only questions I will ask this evening. The last one is much more related to, I think also Santi mentioned this a lot, is exactly this kind of, but what I see in all your works or in your performances is the relationship with the art world. Then that was for me the most, maybe the most boring question. So maybe that out. But that's really fun. How do you use the art world? But also, I feel in all your presentations, all of you, kind of ambiguity with it. Sarah really criticized the criticizer in a way, in my eyes, or creator or something. But at the same time,
yeah, you also work with them, etc. So this kind of ambivalent relationship is for me a question that was definitely in the talk of Santi, I think. So yeah, jump in where you want. I repeat: space, time, trust, and world. Who wants to comment on it or give an idea? Or is this too abstract?
No, I can make it easier and start save everybody. I think we should take them theme by theme, and each of us can comment very briefly so that we have a chance to all reflect on the four themes. So the first one about the physicality of the space, and I think it is quite interesting to see the difference in our practices, but also the parallels. And to me, the physicality of the place is not possible. First, during the revolution as a woman, and then second, because I had no access to my country because of the political situation. So, of course, the physicality is important and would have been welcome, but I try to circumvent that and find other solutions of reaching my audience, either online or through books and what's available to me. So, optimal situation would be physical. If not, then we always have to find a way to get our ideas across. So, I will stop at that, and maybe Sarah, you would like to reflect?
Yeah, maybe just to repeat what I said exactly, because it was indeed to about the relation between place and time, and more this question of, okay, you know, we want to make a nomadic classroom which remains for some time in some area in the city. Then always come the realization that even if it's your city, there are so many different areas that you don't know, and very violent your gesture of doing something there, and the more well meant it is, the more violent it often becomes. So it's about that, to first of all to never start with something fixed somewhere where you don't know, where you're not part of, really, like when you're not in the center of it yourself. But then also, if we want to work with the people and with the realities, then at the same time it needs a lot of work and a lot of time. And but this time it's maybe the time that you're present is not always the time that you're publicly present. So, for instance, if I think about the when we had the occasion to put the tent on Abattoir de Anderlecht, we were already working there long before, without the tent being present there. So for me, it's always all about people, individuals, people who know people, networks, relations between individuals and associations. So you have a little bit more an idea of the intricacies of the potential tensions where you will be part of, and then still it will be a surprise. But maybe I can also connect that to the question of the art world, that it's a little bit a horrible practice of the art world, of the mainly maybe programmers, curators of some at least of the art world, to think that the public program is all that counts. And when you are as an artist working with people, not to use the term participation, because I don't like that term. It's like you can just come there and and influence and leave, but that's really not what you want to do, and that's really not what the work is about. So for me, this tension between a place, time is also still has to take into consideration the access, visibility, invisibility.
I agree with you. Really, at the end, for me, art world is, for me, is architecture. It's a many persons in our world, creators, directors, artists, they have tools, they have energy, and they are very clear. And it's easier sometimes to make for social goals are the most important in our architecture, but in our art too. and sometimes in the art world it's very fast. So we haven't to wait to the permit to listen another technicians. So art have the capacity to go direct. So it's the only way I love art. So I attack art many times, but I love because I know many artists, many critics that are making social. That in my profession, architect, that almost all the architects make only business and only a small group. So the question for me is the artists, creators or the others, it's real that we have the capacity to intervene or to make social projects with art. I know it's real, or it's a joke, it's false, or it's only a moment. In my experience, I was in not my projects, other project that was permanent in time, with person, with effects. So it's possible, but not always. So the problem is, I was in Art Basel, and Pascal say, "What are you doing in Art Basel? It's the motherfucker of all the art meetings." And I decided to went there, and it was a disaster, of course. But I was pay me so much money, and I don't want to return. But so to check all the different position of the art. So when I saw it's amazing, really. When I saw that crazy man trying to make a political act with art, I know. So each one meet a part of art that is possible. I think it's possible and it's necessary. Sorry.
Maybe can I ask you how?
No, I think.
Yeah. All three of you. Yeah, I know this is very strange context, but anyway, do you have kind of first of all, how important is trust in building up your relationships, the work what you want to make? And secondly is what kind of, and I know it's the wrong word, but I don't find the right word. What kind of, no, I know a better word, I think. What are the kind of conditions you think are necessary to build up trust? Wow. How you try to create that? Giving people exactly. I think Sarah, when I was at one of your book presentations, called like that. Yeah, I had real the feeling. Yeah, people are you to really to feel comfortable to show really their vulnerable side. And I was wondering, do you follow a kind of recipe to do this, or is it how can you? And of course, I don't know that you don't do this intentionally, but I was wondering what is to build such a condition that people really dare to show something from themselves. Yeah.
Did you also feel that from yourself, or just from the person you were working with? Did you also feel vulnerable?
Yeah. No, I felt uncomfortable. And that's why I felt also vulnerable. It's and that is interesting, I think. But again, it's not only to you. I think also, like Bahia said, also, yeah, you need at a certain moment that when people say you can do this here, you can make this work here. It is also to do with trust, I think, in that sense. So for me, it's very interesting. How important is trust? The second thing for what you do, and the second thing is,
yeah, how do you try to make those conditions? You can also easily verraden. I'm looking for the English word. Betray people.
Betray.
Or people can people can feel betrayed. Say it like that. So yeah, and for me this is very subtle border, I think.
Yeah. But that's why for me, for instance, it's quite strange a situation like tonight when I speak in a very monologic way, not seeing who is there, and I still didn't see who is there, so it's all quite fictional to me as a kind of author, because I really think we work together. We work together with the people giving the walks, but also you even as a listener, and also with the whole team. So first of all, I think that to not do it alone. And then I must say that I am someone, and I think that the trust is mostly there. I am someone who trusts a lot in people, but like I really, I don't know, I believe in people. I trust in people. I always trust that I really believe that everyone has knowledge to share, and that it's just about kind of defining what it potentially could be. So first of all, the trust is there on my side and the side of the people I'm working with. And then in our work, so I would say Bodies of Knowledge, by now it became more of a collective. There's a lot of and care comes also with time. So there's a lot of conversations, understanding whether this context is okay, but then also on the other hand, working so that the person feels comfortable with whoever is walking with them, also defining the conditions. Some people, for instance, don't want to walk with men, or only want to work with locals or whatever. We respect all these conditions. And then, as you maybe noticed, we've been working most of the time in French, because that's the principal language in speaking language in Brussels. And a term I really learned, which is not existing in Flemish, and I think also not in English, is bienveillance. And I cannot, it's like always being sensitive for what's happening. And the first thing that you put forward, I really think it's the well-being of the people, the well-being, the people feeling well, being well inside the thing, but also that it's a collaboration, so that it's not my thing. So for me, they form this thing, they implement this thing forever together with us, I would say. But it's pretty much like, and I would say with VOC more than with anything else, I really feel it like it's a co-creation. And I think people, I think I've seen, like, I've of course seen many artwork which you could say works with people or try to establish that kind of honest communication and very direct, or what you say, very vulnerable conversation. I think as long as there's someone manipulating the thing or having an idea about it, not working. I cannot even say, because I refer to what you say, something about a social project. For me, it's not, because there is no final goal with this, you know. It's just a creation of a space for exchange, and it's slowly molding it, like, how do you say this, transforming itself into different things, taking different shapes. People are more and more starting to appropriate it themselves as a platform they want to use and a tool they want to use. So for me, it's to a large extent also bienveillance, but then at the same time not completely being in control also. If that's not too abstract.
No. Very clear for me. And at the end, I think that I need the artists or to translate. So at the end, I'm technician, and many times in many situations we need another person. Day by day when I meet with Pascal, I say this, like today, say, why I need you? So why? How? I involve you in our projects, because we need that translators, not only translator. When they, he, you translate, introduce a new concepts, a new feeling, involve people. In my work like architect, we need that type of process. Sometimes when we are totally bored, we decide to make art because it's easier. But when I see your project, say we need a person to introduce, and then the thing changes. So I think so. So we need translator, because when you talk with a lawyer, a architect, and appear a different person, could be a normal person, not artist, change a thing. So I don't know. I will return to be artist.
Can I ask you the question, Santi? Trust. Yeah, that's legal. It's legal to smoke. So. Hey, I have a question for you. My question is also how important is trust for you, and how do you build up trust relationships in such situations? Like, for example, Canal Real was really very complicated, with different groups who didn't talk with each other, who had separate lives but lived in the same space, and you brought them together. Is it how? Where is the line?
No. The line, all of you know, when you meet with a person and you see your eyes, it's appear like a poetrist. No, but it's real. I meet 3-4 teams